Hello and welcome to another episode of View from Luffield. Spain, last of the triple headers, or the first triple headers in Europe.
Last of the first three. Genuinely, if you stick around for when we discuss the race, because we've literally just finished it. We're a little bit early this week. We've literally just finished watching the race, and my God, there's a lot to get through. Welcome back to Phil after his holiday. Thanks again to other Phil for covering him last week. If you've not watched the Monaco videos or listened to the Monaco episode on Spotify, please go back and do so.
Yeah, he did a great job. Although there's a lot of bias, and not enough Ferrari. So we've got the red going on for anyone who's watching on YouTube over there now. We've got some newfangled mics. So if you hear any other noises like me slurping a drink, then I apologise.
Yeah.
Or if you can't hear me properly, I might move it a bit higher up.
Welcome our guests whilst I do. Anyway, okay, so before we start, anybody may have seen this week in between Monaco and Spain, Alex Wurz has been discussing changes that he would possibly make to Monaco. If you're joining us on YouTube, we'll have these images over whilst me and Phil talk about the changes. If you're on Spotify, unfortunately, you won't. We will share them on our socials, though. So just have a look on our View from Luffield Instagram page, and we'll share on there what's been discussed. So first thing is changing the hairpin.
Yeah, this is one I don't think will do as much as the other changes have.
I think it's too slow, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be honest, it'll be far too easy to block a car still because it's full steering lock. What you're going to do if you go out wide and try and pull it back, you've only got so much steering angle. You got to run into a wall, and people know to run you out wide. And
I think the only thing it might do is it now provides you two different lines coming out of the hairpin. So
it does, but there's not much of a sprint down to the next corner.
No, but what I'm getting at is if you're going into that maybe a second or 8/10 or something behind, if you can take maybe a different, quicker line, it might put you then in a position where you're closer. Then coming into something like the tunnel, you might be a little bit closer, which then, and it's as if I practiced.
Oh, amazing there.
Which
amazing.
Then leads you on to moving the swimming pool. No, it's not the swimming pool, is it? It's Nouvelle.
Yeah, it's Nouvelle.
Yeah, so moving the Nouvelle chicane, so moving that a little bit further down, which gives you a longer straight once you come out of the tunnel. Now, they're not making any changes necessarily to that corner. It will still be as it is. It's just going to be a little bit further along, which will give you a greater run out of the tunnel. As we've just mentioned, if you can close that gap with a different line through the hairpin, keep closer through the two corners just before the tunnel. And then if you can get a little bit of speed into that, could maybe even look at putting that as a DRS just on the exit of the tunnel, not through it.
I don't know if it's going to be long enough. What it does remove is the mega bumps on the under braking into the Nouvelle chicane if they move it further down. Yeah.
I like that one, and I think that gives you I think it gives you a bit of a better runoff. I still don't think it's a great corner to overtaking.
No.
But I do think it gives you a bit of a longer straight coming out the end of the tunnel. So I like that one. But my favourite of the three, 100%.
I agree with this one as well. Yeah,
is the final corner. So what they're thinking of doing, again, if you're on YouTube, you'll see an image of it now. Is they're going to make entry into the final corner. Well, it's a final proper corner.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've both forgot the name of it. It's one with the cafe in the middle of it, for anyone who knows Monaco.
The only person I've ever seen overtake there as in its current thing is Leclerc.
Yeah.
I think he did it a couple of years ago. So the only person I've ever seen actually really do it.
I think Bianchi did it once.
If he has, I don't remember. I remember Charles Leclerc doing it.
Yeah.
But again, what they're on about doing there is just tightening the entry. And then it gives you a wider line coming out of it, which I think that's probably the better of the three.
Listen, we got to do something. They tried the 2 stops. It was pointless. As I made the joke to you, I'd have been back a bit earlier from France, but I got stuck behind Carlos Sainz, still slowing everyone down around France.
Look, it needs changing, and we know I came up with a bold idea to change it last week with the time trial idea. F1 are never going to go for it. They're never going to get rid of Monaco, so we just need to accept that. It's never going to happen. So it's some interesting ideas from Alex Wurz. I don't think it will make a great deal of difference, if I'm honest. I do think there's benefits, but I think the race is so bad that you're looking at just making it not awful.
Well, you know my opinion. Just get rid of it.
Yeah,
I know it's a jewel in the crown, but so Silverstone.
Yeah, they're never going to get rid of it, unfortunately. No. Anyway, moving on to something that was actually exciting. So we're going to discuss the Spanish Grand Prix weekend. Qualifying, actually, we'll obviously start with qualifying first. Qualifying wasn't the most entertaining of sessions in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Q1 track temperature was at 50 degrees Celsius, which
Nice.
is mega. And anybody who watched the race, you will have heard every celebrity that they asked tell you that it's hot, just in case you needed to know that Spain in June is
It's
hot.
hot. Although it wasn't June for qualifying, it was still the end of May.
Sorry,
Just to
sorry,
be-
we're talking about qualifying now.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
So
You're jumping ahead.
I am, sorry. A couple of things. McLaren's looked very quick in Q1. Max did a fantastic job in Q1 to split them because we've praised Max Verstappen many a time, but he's doing a lot with that car that just shouldn't be humanly possible.
I swear, he's complained about that car more than I did my first car, the little Fiesta. And that
I
was
used to like that Fiesta.
that was held together by wood by the
Yeah.
end. But no, absolutely class, to be fair, from Max again. Again, McLaren's look untouchable. Again, Ferraris look off the boil as soon as it comes to qualifying. Yeah. See, this is the problem with qualifying this year. I don't know about you. It should be more exciting because there's so little gap between every car. You know, we're now counting by hundreds and thousands on a regular basis rather than...
I've heard David Croft say milliseconds more than
exactly.
Than ever before.
And yet, I don't sit there going, wow, what a thrill. It's a weird, almost paradox we've got, but...
We tend to get, me and Phil were speaking about this just before, we tend to get Q1 has some excitement, but the excitement more comes towards the end of Q1, where we see sort of the surprise eliminations, which we'll go through in a second as to who they were in Spain. Q2 just seems to be a little bit...
There's very few surprises, barring Ferrari and Imola.
There's
very few surprises in Q2.
Mercedes and Monaco.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, and you know, it's not... Q2 isn't really throwing us up much. But going back to Q1, we did have the two big surprises. One was Carlos Sainz. That Williams just looks like it had no pace all weekend in any format.
But there's a worrying thing because Rosberg, who, by the way, is a great addition to Sky Sports F1.
Yeah, we love Nico Rosberg this weekend.
Anyone who's watching this outside of the UK who don't get Sky, it's a shame because he's a class act.
And you will also not have any clue who David Croft is when we continually reference it.
That much is true. He called the fact that it's not been developed that way, that they've pointed their aero kind of path in another way to the fast corners. The British, and one of the fastest tracks on the calendar with very fast corners is British.
Yeah.
You know, for a team that's always after money, don't get me wrong, they've got great owners at the moment. We've said that before. They've kept the Williams name. That's a great thing. Yeah. Way more sponsors on the car nowadays, especially with Sainz Smith Santon. You want to perform well on your home track.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Williams are basically, if they're going to stick to this by the time Silverstone comes around in a month, if they're going to stick to that, then it doesn't look good for them at Silverstone. And it wasn't good for Sainz at its home Grand Prix. So, and you consider Albon's home Grand Prix is realistically...
It's Silverstone. As much I know he treats Singapore very special to him, but it's Silverstone.
So it doesn't look like it's going to be a great home season for Williams because I thought they were pretty poor all weekend. So that was the big shock. Really, Sainz got out in Q1. The other big shock, which was a horrendous shock, and it did have implications for the race. Tsunoda, if you watch it back through qualifying on his outlap, so just as he's obviously trying to take too much exit curb on the final turn to really be able to put the power down early into that flying lap. He just catches far too much curb. There was a suspicion that he damaged the floor. So the notes I've actually got was, did he damage the floor on the exit going into his flying lap? Because even his flying lap got him 20th.
Yeah, he was slowest.
Yeah,
outright
by merit.
Yeah.
And it did turn out, because again, maybe jumping forward a little bit for the race, but he did actually start the Grand Prix with a pit lane start, and they supposedly replaced the suspension. So it looks like that little clip of just too much curb on the exit caused a bit of damage. And it isn't the first time that there's been an incident where he's clipped a little bit of too much curb. If you watch qualifying for Imola, for instance, he got a bit greedy with the curb and sent his car upside down. Not as bad in Spain, admittedly, but still poor from him.
If it weren't for the fact that we're massive advocates of Hajar, I'd say he needs to be in the Red Bull car
we don't
now.
want him there.
But we don't want him there because it looks like a career killer.
Yeah, it does. I don't want to believe in the Red Bull second seat curse because it's but no matter who, Perez, Ricardo, even going back years to Weber, and we're not talking about bad drivers in that second seat.
You could go back to all the way when they first made it to grid. It was Coulthard plus Clean and Dernbos who got mixed around, and
John-Eric Verne was another good driver.
Scott Speed was another one who didn't. I don't think it. Danny Kvyat.
He was Toro Rosso when
he was, but I don't know if he ever made it. Probably not.
But the point is,
Kvyat was quick, but then got called the torpedo by Vettel after numerous mistakes in that second seat.
Lost his misses as well.
To Red Bull's number one.
There
we go.
That is the curse of the seat. Not only your rubbish, you lose your misses too.
Max gets to choose what he wants.
He didn't get it all his own way on Sunday, though. Stay tuned. So one other note I did have from Q1, because Q1 does seem to be where the action is I actually thought Ollie Behrman did really well. I know me and Phil always have a little bit of a Behrman versus Bortoletto kind of thing, but fair play to both of them, actually, because we've commented many a time on that Sauber, and again, the race, massive props for one person in particular, the race will get there. Ollie Behrman did really well because all the way through free practice, it looked like that Haas just had no pace whatsoever this weekend. So fair play to Behrman for getting through. And also fair play to Bortoletto as well. So both of them out-qualified their more experienced teammates in Ocon and Hülkenberg, respectively.
Which is incredible when you think about it, because let's be honest, Ocon...
You're squashing Zach.
Zach, I'm sorry. I'm trying to hide as much McLaren as possible. Orange as possible. I won't call it papaya.
Sorry, I broke you halfway through what you were talking about.
I know, I've gone now. No, Ocon and Hülkenberg are really experienced. Ocon's a race winner. Let's not forget. Hülkenberg should be a race winner for everything he's done, but absolutely quality by both Bortoletto and Behrman.
No, they both did really well, because like I said, that Haas just didn't look like it had any pace on Friday at all. So out from Q1 then, on the road, you had Hülkenberg in 16th. Ocon was 17th, Sainz 18th. Again, just that Williams just had absolutely nothing to show for it. Colapinto 19th.
Does that prove that Alpine were right then to get rid of Douigne?
I just don't. I mean, again, we said it. Go back a couple of episodes. We said it then. Colapinto won't make it till after Silverstone. That will be his last race for Alpine, and it's just a case of whether it's due and back or whether it's someone else. I don't dislike Franco Colapinto. I just don't see the point. I don't see what he's bringing.
No, the car's fundamentally not very good.
Yeah, and you would think if you're going to do that change, bring in somebody. I'm trying to think of a name. Perez.
Solid.
It would be bold, but you're bringing someone back who has at least got experience of a front-running car who can tell you. Look at when Mercedes came back. They had Schumacher. Look at when Red Bull came into the sport. They had Coulthard. All these teams, when they come in, they have an experienced head who isn't necessarily going to be there to win races, but someone who can give them the feedback that they need to grow. If they're saying that Gasly's that person, I don't count him as experienced enough to give that sort of feedback.
He's been around a fair few years now.
But he's not experienced I know he's won a race, but he's not at the front regularly used to being the front of the field. I don't know. I just think Colapinto for doing makes no sense.
That said, you're calling Alpine a new team, but they've been going for years. Well, they're a championship winning team.
Yeah, that's true, actually. They've got the experience from within, haven't they? And
Team Enstone, don't forget.
Yeah, because Renault before it. I mean, because Briatore is back. I mean, that won't cause any drama whatsoever. Anyway, going back to Q1. And Yuki Tsunoda, obviously, last, as we said, last on the road and would eventually start from the pit lane. Q2.
Should we just give the results? Because barring another shocker from Williams, and I can't remember anything else that happened during Q2.
No, I mean, my only other note is of what I've just said, fair play to Bortoletto. I didn't make that note twice. I know I'm a massive Gabriel Bortoletto fan. I didn't make that point twice. It was a Q2 point that I just mentioned a minute ago. But yeah, again, McLarens were mega. That was literally it from Q2. It wasn't anything really to particularly write home about. So...
It happened.
It happened. So for them, 11th was Albon again. The Williams just not showing any pace. Fair play to him though for getting 11th when Sainz only got 18th.
Yeah, but it just felt like a scruffy weekend for Williams. Really scruffy.
I mean, and it gets worse when we go to talk about the race. It really did get worse for them. 12th was Bortoletto. We'll just have a moment to just leave that out there. 12th was Bortoletto.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
13th was Liam Lawson. 14th was Lance Stroll. And 15th was Ollie Behrman. Again, to be fair play to both Bortoletto and Behrman for getting through. On Lance Stroll, so Lance Stroll qualified in 14th on the road. He wouldn't actually take part in the race, and I'm just looking for the note because I want to read the actual official statement, and I don't know where it is.
You get a thing going back in your book now.
I think I am. Yeah, I think I'm going back.
Right,
to
to go
Spain
forward.
or something There you go.
So this is why I don't make notes, Phil Egan, for you calling me out last week. Yep, I just use my head.
So the official statement. Well, go on then. Read the official statement off your head.
It was something to do with the injury that he sustained. Statement. They went, it's something to do with that crash he had in 23 when he was riding his bike. And there's been a few problems, and now it's a bit messed up.
And it actually said the word summit, S-O-M-E-T. No, the official statement was Stroll withdrew from the race to undergo a medical procedure after experienced pain in his hand and wrist. So, in fairness to Phil, basically what you just said.
Yeah, see? I am the press officer for Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Or I am available for
I think
press releases,
you could do the job. So Q2 was a bit naff. As I said, Stroll was 14th, but wouldn't actually start the race. He withdrew. And because, for anybody who was asking the question, because there was a little bit of a debate in the View from Luffield WhatsApp group as to whether or not that meant Filip Drugovich could have come in. Because he hadn't qualified for Aston Martin, he's unable to take part in the Grand Prix. Which, on that actually, because I must admit, I think that is robbing an opportunity of a younger driver.
It is, but he's done no track time whatsoever, and you're throwing him into a Grand Prix.
Possible.
No, I think it's the right rules as well. That he didn't qualify that car, so where does he start?
Pit lane.
But again, he's going to be so. Look at when they put him in. If they put him in practice one, and Drugovich is an incredible driver, ex-F2 champion, I believe.
Yeah.
They always end up a second and a half slower than the rest of the cars. Even the slowest car. But then it's not worth the risk of putting someone in.
But then we've spoke about this before, and F1 teams are getting better at this, I think, for me, this year at least, is we spoke about this before. Do you say at every session that in the ones where you've got FP1, FP2, FP3, do you say in those sessions that you must at least give your test driver, your young driver, whatever,
your reserve driver for that weekend?
You've got to give them one of those 3 sessions just to keep the hand in, just in case there's an incident like this.
Well, that's why Behrman was allowed to replace Sainz, of course, was that he got practice 3 and qualifying before the race. So he was up. Well, he was up to speed when he got 7th in the race.
Yeah, I just think Ollie Behrman is at Haas. He probably pipped some others, maybe like an Arthur Leclerc. We don't know this. I'm just speculating. But he's pipped people like that because they saw his performance in the Ferrari at Saudi Arabia, and that chance came to him because of an illness or obviously an issue with Carlos Sainz. So I feel like if you do something to make sure that these opportunities, no one wants to watch a Grand Prix start with only 19 cars.
No, but what the counter argument then is not. He'll have a seat, I'm assuming, because he's a reserve driver.
Yeah.
He's not had time to set up the pedals. He's had no time for car setup. What tyres does he use? Because the tyre allotment is to Stroll.
Unless he just takes over Stroll's.
It's it's too much of a risk going straight into a race, and that's why I actually think the FIA are right, which is a rare thing for me.
You won't hear that very often.
No, but it's.
I agree. I think there's a lot of red tape to get through. It's just a shame when you see that you see an opportunity potentially could have been there for like Drugovich, particularly in this instance. You just see an opportunity there, and it feels like maybe they could have taken it.
But then where's the difference? One of the best qualifiers currently is, let's say, Charles Leclerc. This year's not, but we've all agreed in the past, over one lap, when the car's good enough, he'll put it on pole.
Yeah.
Who's not to say that Ferrari say it was poorly again, so we'll put Vettel in now for,
fair.
Yeah, I know he wouldn't start from P1, he'd start from, but teams will find a way to
like
abuse
work,
it.
You know, when you get so many days before they start doing SSP, maybe they do the same thing. They don't pay them. I don't know. I don't know.
Our Aston Martin short on money and couldn't afford.
Maybe. The one thing that I don't get, though, is if Stroll's not just started feeling this pain, like you said, this is as a result of his bike accident in 2023. I don't know. Could they not have just said, look, we're going to undergo this medical operation and given Drugovich the weekend? Or did it was it just so much worse on the Saturday?
That's the thing. Has he been bouncing off the curbs? It's a very fast track. Has it been?
It's a triple header.
Is it? Yeah. Is it a triple header? That's Monaco will have battered his hand if anything. Maybe there would have been. It would have been if they knew, of course.
Exactly. Again, we're speculating.
But yeah, maybe it would have been better to say sit this one out, mate. Because let's be honest, Aston Martin are waiting for next year.
Yeah, and to be fair, from Stroll's point of view, to actually qualify 14th it was a good job.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't a million miles off Alonso from what I can remember. It was just the times of that.
Yeah, so it's not like he's qualified 20th and they've gone, oh, do you know what? Go and have your operation.
Yeah, he's up there.
Right.
And,
So I don't know, but we're speculating. It's just for me. I understand Phil's right. There's probably too much to jump through to make it happen. It just feels like a missed opportunity.
It does, but it depends on when he felt it.
Yeah. Anyway,
the fact we're talking about someone taking a sick day as the most interesting bit of Q2 says a lot about Q2.
Says a lot about qualifying, if I'm honest.
Go back to the 60 minutes and 12 laps.
Do you know, I agree.
Let's do that.
I've been speaking to people about this week because when I mentioned it about the time trial thing, about having whether it's 1 or 2 hours for Monaco, I've been speaking to, I just prefer the old qualifying thing.
What they wanted to do was that a certain someone in a red and white car with a yellow helmet that I've actually got on only came out for 3 laps at the end of qualifying and usually banged it on pole, and you didn't see him for the rest of Saturday. So they wanted to increase the show, which is right, but we've had enough of this format.
Well, to be fair,
I used to like the 1 laps.
Yeah, I did. I remember Montoya getting pole because everyone else had ballsed it up on the. The thing is, I do like Q1, Q2, Q3. I think it does add a bit of jeopardy. I just think this season it's not been. I just think this season's been not great.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but anyway.
That's coming from someone who's pretty much been front row every single race.
Yeah, it's been a slog for us to get here, though. I've seen many a Q1 exit.
As a Ferrari fan, I'm sick and tired of qualifying. I want the grid to be lined up in alphabetical order.
Team or driver?
No, the team. So Ferrari. I know we're actually called Scuderia Ferrari HP.
Right. So you're just changing your team name?
Well, we'd probably qualify higher up.
Right. Well,
even with S.
Well, we're Google McLaren, so we qualify higher.
Not Google McLaren.
I'm just thinking of a letter.
Your pointless fruit no one knows of, colour orange McLaren. Yeah, Arrows from the 90s still.
Well, there you go. We'll just change our name to Arrows.
Well, you look like them.
Haas would be ahead of you. Aston Martin. Alpine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm not saying we'd be pole still.
You'd probably still qualify where you are. Would make quite interesting. Anyway, we are going off on a massive tangent.
This is how bored we were. Right, Q3.
Piastri just wanted to say this because Piastri did get pole, and that made him quickest in all 3 sessions in Q1, Q2, Q3. So it doesn't mean anything, but I thought it was quite impressive from Oscar Piastri.
I just think Oscar Piastri is quite impressive.
Yeah, I agree.
Simple as that. What a driver. He's just the calmest I have ever seen in the world. He is Kimi Räikkönen version 2.
Yeah, I think the difference we mentioned if you go back and watch the Monaco episode, me and other Phil, and I'm sorry Phil for calling you other Phil, but it's just for
Phil 2.
Everyone else's ease.
Phil 1.
Yeah, based on what date of birth?
Age. Yeah, right, we'll go age.
Just make sure we don't hurt Phil 2's feelings.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you wait till you see the thumbnails for this video.
I know. Yeah. So Ferrari, I know. Sorry, going back to Piastri, I was moving on to the next note. We said in the Monaco race that Lando really proved, again in the qualifying side, that in the one race that was more important than any other to actually put that on pole, he had the coolness that those were almost swap places in Monaco. Norris had the coolness to put it on pole, whereas Piastri just looked a little bit wobbly through a lot of Monaco weekend and didn't do it. Whereas going now to Spain, it was absolutely roles back reversed, back to how they should be. I thought Piastri was absolutely mega to finish 2 tenths of a second quicker than his teammate. He just looked exemplary.
And Norris wasn't off it. That's the thing. There wasn't a mistake or anything. No. It's just that Piastri. I mean, that's the sign of a future world champion in my eyes. Was he had one bad weekend and look how he's reacted.
Yeah, and exactly. It wasn't a. And even when you listen to and this is Norris's downside as well. When he has a bad weekend, he says stuff like, "I've had a bad weekend," and there's been quotes of him saying stuff like, "I don't feel like I've ever driven a Formula One car." He's very quick to beat himself up. We've talked about this in the past. Whereas Piastri just almost goes, "Yeah, it wasn't my weekend. Never mind. We'll move on to the next one."
I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him. I mean, the points were down to 3 points between him and Lando. He was getting very close, and they're both young. And if Piastri was going to crack, they'd have been showing after Monaco, I believe. But
yeah, he's come back, and especially on the Saturday. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll go into the race obviously in a minute, but yeah, on the Saturday, absolutely mega
Absolutely.
pace from Oscar Piastri. So that was about it. Qualifying really on the Saturday, the only real bits of excitement were probably what happened with the Williams having no pace, Tsunoda having no suspension. That's about it. One thing I did make a note of, and this is really interesting because this will, and anybody who watched the Monaco episode know that my prediction for the Grand Prix win was Charles Leclerc. Again, the Ferraris they're showing absolutely no signs of quali pace. Hamilton's better. You said this earlier. Hamilton's got the pace over one lap. Leclerc has a better race pace.
Well, Fred Vassar, didn't he, after qualifying, came out and said they kind of sacrificed Leclerc's qualifying for a race setup, which is great if you can qualify higher up.
Yeah.
You know, that would make sense if you were Piastri or Norris, but Ferrari need to take a step. We've been saying it all season. The Ferrari's not slow.
Yeah.
It's just they get stuck behind or in a bit of a battle they don't need to be in.
Yeah. I understand that they're prioritising race pace, and of course that's where the points are given. I get that 100%. But most times, if you're qualifying as low as 7th, anyone who's finished watching the race before they're watching this episode are probably sat there listening to us. Well, Charles Leclerc finished the race in X. Yeah, we know. But
we know this, but this is the qualifying review.
Saturday, so shut up. But yeah,
don't shut up. Your input is more than welcome.
No, not if it's Ferrari beneficial. Not if it's
always Ferrari beneficial.
But yeah, no. When you're qualifying as low as 7th, yes, you might have a fantastic race car. And, you know, spoiler alert, they did. But it's just giving yourself a lot to. For me, it's giving yourself a lot to do when you're down in 7th.
I think that the way I read it, as a completely non-biased, actually no, I'm a Ferrari fan who's fed up this year. I think they're still trying to work out the car, because why else would you split strategies? You'd give both drivers a better race car if they thought that, or both drivers the qualifying setup. The fact that they left Hamilton on a qualifying setup, a setup that's not been sacrificed for the race, and did
probably
the
more
same
of a 50-50 setup.
Yeah. You're going to sacrifice something, aren't you, over the weekend?
Yeah.
You can't have both. But it feels like they're clutching at straws. Not maybe trying to understand, because there was a massive change. Ferrari changed all the suspension layout. I think they've either gone push rod to pull rod or pull rod to push rod. One or the other way. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's a lot of development there if they can get on top of it. And I think they're trying their hardest to...
Yeah. Look, they've not given up on 25.
No.
Without spending too much money on it.
Yeah.
They're trying to change stuff with the car that they've got, and fair play. So Ferrari just having no quali pace again.
Good run by Hamilton, though.
Fifth
is his best qualifying for Ferrari so far.
In a Grand Prix, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Was he sprint pole for China?
Yes, he was, yeah.
So where we finished...
that sprint races don't count, as I've always said.
They did until Miami.
No.
And then they don't now.
They don't count at all.
How we finished qualifying then, Piastri was quickest. Lando Norris would join him on the front row. Max Verstappen was in 3rd. George Russell 4th. Lewis Hamilton, as Phil just touched upon, got his Ferrari into 5th. Kimi Antonelli in 6th. Charles Leclerc 7th, as we've just been talking about. Pierre Gasly in 8th. Isaac Hadjar,
God.
The View from Podcast Hero, was in 9th. And another View from Podcast Hero, but King is Fernando Alonso, and he got himself into 10th with a very strong chance of getting his first points of the season at his home Grand Prix. Stick around to find out how he got on. If you're on Spotify, we'll have just a quick break and we'll go into the race. If you're on YouTube, go now, because the race video will be uploaded too. So go watch the race one, because the race was far more exciting.
What are you doing here still?
Yeah, go away. So we'll see you in just a moment to discuss the race.